The Climate Change Minister, Greg Combet, led the government's attack in the Parliament.
They are still a rabble over there on this issue and on the science in particular. Senator Minchin has been out today speaking for the climate science deniers. And of course Senator Minchin, who owns the Leader of the Opposition, who installed him, wrecking action on climate change, a noted climate science denier, he's the one who thinks it's a communist conspiracy.
Climate Minister Greg Combet in the Parliament yesterday. Well, the Shadow Minister for Climate Change, Greg Hunt, was unavailable this morning, but another senior coalition frontbencher, National Party Senator Barnaby Joyce, joined you now. Senator Joyce, good morning. Welcome to breakfast.
Good morning, Fran.
We'll get to the climate change debate in a moment. Can I ask you first, though, about this suggestion that Bob Katter is talking about setting up a country-focused party in your home state of Queensland. You have anything to worry about?
Well, look, I always believe, Fran, that if there's a marketplace out there that can be filled in its political requirements by someone who can articulate a cause that collects a vote, good luck to them. I mean, that should be the job of all of us. We should all have the capacity to address the needs of the people in our electorate, and they have that right at the ballot box to decide whether you're politically relevant or not. Now, I do also acknowledge, Fran, that it's incredibly hard to set up a political party, and there's been a number of attempts at it before. There's also been political parties that have set up and then not long after imploded, One Nation being one. But what I in a funny sort of way, I wish Bob all the best, but I don't think that I'll be surprised by the outcome. I've always...
Which will be what? What do you think the outcome will be?
Nothing much happens.
Are you worried about, I mean, sure, parties come and go and good luck to them, as you say, but what about splitting your vote? Because Bob Katter says a party would, quote, better represent rural and regional interests. If it happened, such a party would drag votes away most likely from the Nationals in Queensland, not from Labor, which is presumably the last thing Campbell Newman and the LNP need, given there's a state election due within the year.
Well, I've got no problems with there being competition in the political marketplace, and that's what it's all about. I've got no problems with, in some ways it's good because it brings real focus onto the issues, and that's a good outcome. I believe that we have a party that looks after regional Australia. It's called the National Party. I can go to numerous things that we've done that have shown that, from stopping the ETS, from infrastructure partnership scheme for nation building infrastructure, dams task force that is currently going around looking at the construction of dams to bring a new sense of vibrancy and a new sense of economy, a new sense of social opportunity to people in regional areas, inland rail, zonal taxation for 5 local regional governments.
Okay.
These are all positive policies, Fran, that I want to. I'm only too happy for someone to say, I'll challenge you on a debate on that, and then I can say, great, because that means we both get on television and we can both talk about our policies, and I look forward to that opportunity. That's a good outcome.
Well, let's go now to the climate change debate. Do you agree with Senator Nick Minchin? Is the report by the Climate Commission tabled yesterday or released yesterday offensive nonsense furthering, quote, the cause of global warming alarmism?
Well, I think both sides can be accused of pejorative terms, and I've also just heard Mr. Combet talking about a communist conspiracy and
I think he was suggesting that that's what Nick Minchin was accusing.
Well, it was his statement, not Nick's. So both sides can get carried away with the pejorative term, and it's an open debate, but I'm a little bit reticent to endorse the pejorative term. It usually stands in proxy for an argument. Okay,
so did you welcome the Climate Commission's report?
I've got it here with me, Fran, but I welcome any addition to the information that we have. I'm having a read through it. It helped me get to sleep last night. But just because you've got so many pieces of paper and nailed them in the corner with a staple doesn't mean you've won the debate. It just means the debate continues on.
Well, the Shadow Climate Change Minister Greg Hunt put out a statement welcoming the report. Tony Abbott welcomed the report. Greg Hunt's statement said the coalition recognises the world is warming and that humans have an impact on that warming. So, two senior people there, Nick Minchin and Greg Hunt, at odds. Where do you stand in this? From your own mouth, do you agree the coalition recognises the world is warming, humans have an impact on that warming?
Well, certainly that the world is warming, and at some other point, I imagine it'll be cooling. And then the one thing I can assure you, Fran, is it's not staying the same, and it never has and never will.
Humans have a direct impact on the warming?
Well, humans must have some impact, but the question I do direct you to is this. Show me where in the report it says Australia will have an effect in changing the climate, because we won't. And what I do note is that you have today Queensland Council of Social Services talking about the cost of living, talking about people who are doing it tough are going to do it tougher, and they're going to do it excessively tough when we find ourselves going down a path of bringing in a tax that puts up the price of everything, yet does nothing to change the temperature of the globe.
Sure, but there is plenty in the report that says we have a decade to do something about the global carbon emissions, or basically we're sunk. He said there's no substitute for cutting fossil fuel emissions. They have had it peer reviewed by the CSIRO and other groups, the Bureau of Meteorology. Do you pay attention to that?
Well, Fran, I'm sure that if you give the opportunity for other people who are also scientists and eminently qualified to come on your show and give it a contrarian view, you will get them in droves. I don't condone this argument that the debate is over. In fact, reading through the report in a cursory way, I noticed that a whole range of areas they themselves have made adjustments on previous statements they've made. One being ice in Greenland, where they've said they were out by a factor of 2. Now, this just goes to show that everything is a continuation of the quest for knowledge. Now,
they do say quite clearly that the overwhelming scientific view is that it is real and it is urgent. Well,
I don't believe that we've got 8 years, 7 months will instantaneously combust. I think that also is a form of emotion, and I want to make sure that we have an economy. There's a very good way if you really want to shut down the economy, and this plan does work, and it's working excessively well in England and Europe at the moment. And that's, you just let your public debt get out of control and the stock market falls over, and we've been seeing that last night. So Australia is also going down that path. We're heading towards $250 billion on our credit card. Maybe that's just another plan to cool the planet.
The opposition has a plan for carbon abatement. It's called Direct Action, and the Commission says a big part of the plan, of the Coalition's plan, is financial incentives to polluters to sequester carbon in soil and trees, soil carbon. The Commission says these offsets are positive and will have an immediate impact, but are no substitute for cutting fossil fuel emissions, and actually have the potential to lock in more severe climate change for the future. Do you support the Direct Action Plan of the Coalition?
Well, I think the direct action plan is good because it's multifaceted, Fran. I mean, if you're increasing the productivity of soil, that's a good outcome. If you're inspiring greater technology that makes engines more efficient, that's a good outcome. If you're increasing people's standard of living, that's a good outcome. It's a good outcome on many levels. It makes vastly more sense than to say, I'm going to terrify you, and then I'm going to moralise to you, and then I'm going to bang a tax on you, and then I'm going to make you poorer, but nothing's going to happen to the climate. It's just that I'm going to be taking money out of your wallet, putting into my wallet, and every time you dare argue with me, I'm going to say you're a denier or use some other pejorative to try and take the debate away from the reality of what is actually happening. That is, nothing by reason of Australia's actions alone will change the climate. That is an absolute fact. It's neither going to get warmer nor colder nor stay the same by reason of the actions of Australia. What you can do is do immense damage to your economy. What you definitely will do is make people poorer, and those who are doing it tough will have less money because of basically a frolic that you went on that they never agreed to.
Now, all of that, of course, is what the government says is just scaremongering. And what about even some on your own side? Malcolm Turnbull, just last week, made it clear that he thought the Coalition's direct action policy, well, partly it's seen as the best thing about it from those who support it is that it can be easily terminated. Is that what you think is one of the strongest virtues of the direct action plan?
I've never been at any discussion where that has been raised. So, I mean, Malcolm is well entitled to his views. And, I mean, there's no surprise about Malcolm's views. Malcolm is, we believe on our side of politics in the liberty of the individual being able to express their views. That is what differentiates us from the Labor Party. In the Labor Party, if you dissent, you're immediately expelled. And we're seeing with such people as Senator Hutchins now how they believe that the whole sort of philosophical fabric of the Labor Party is coming asunder. We will not have that on our side of politics. We believe in your freedom to express a different view if you have it.
All right. The other direct view he expressed, Malcolm Turnbull expressed, was that the direct action policy that your side prefers could be very expensive in the long run because, as he says, where industry was able to freely pollute, if you like, and the government was just spending more and more taxpayers' money to offset it, that would become a very expensive charge on the budget in the years ahead, which would ultimately, of course, impact on cost of living as well.
Well, I don't believe, as I've always said, Fran, that we developed the wheel because we tax walking, or we developed the motor car because we tax horses. And I don't believe we're going to become a more efficient economy because we tax the bejesus out of every man, woman and child walking down the street, so that everything you do, every PowerPoint in your house becomes a collection revenue mechanism for the Australian Taxation Office. I don't think that's going to cool the planet.
Okay.
I just think it's going to make people very miserable, angry, and you've seen that in the polls, Fran. And the sooner the Labor Party wakes up and realises that the pejorative in the chamber is no excuse for the lack of votes on the street, then they might be able to get their own house back in order.
And can I just ask you finally, what's your position on the plain packaging bill for tobacco?
Well, Fran, the issue is somewhere along the line, if people have legally bought a property right, then we mightn't agree to the mechanism of them getting it, but it's legally theirs. I don't. Smoking is an insidious thing. It will definitely kill you. There's no doubt about it. It is a terrible outcome, but can we go into the offices of British American Tobacco and Philip Morris and take their computers off the desk and their furniture out of their living room? Because
it's about extremes, though. I mean, plenty of governments in the past, and I'm sure you've supported them in the past, ultimately have regulated to try and minimise the damage and force the tobacco companies to put warnings on packs, force the tobacco companies to be not allowed to sponsor sporting events, for instance.
And I think that's all well and good, and we've gone down that path. But somewhere along the line, you get to a point where, do you go into shops that have sold tobacco and start taking assets off them, saying these assets are not yours because we deem that we have another position where we can put in proxy for a property right, an emotional argument.
But it's advertising. We've stopped advertising before. Why is it any different?
Because these people would say this, it's our right, it's our patent right that we've invested a lot of money.
Of course they say that. I mean, they've invested hundreds and hundreds of millions, if not billions, on developing
Of course. But where do we draw the line, Fran? Why can't we then go into their offices and just take their furniture and their chairs and their computers and go into the bank accounts and take their money out? Why can't we do that?
Well, it's a public health argument. I mean, basically, you don't support the plain packaging bill.
That is the extension of the argument. If you don't believe in their right to own property, then there should be no property that they're entitled to hold. I mean, what property are they allowed to hold? What property are they not allowed to hold?
They still own a brand. I mean, it still has a name.
Yeah, but they might suggest that in this instance, they don't have the capacity to display that, therefore it's no longer their asset. Now
they do suggest that. Can I just? We've got to wind it up now. But just finally, you do not support then the plain packaging bill?
Well, the debate's still at foot, and I know that colleagues have strong views on it, and we'll listen to the debate in the coalition joint party room.
It sounds like you're convinced, though.
Fran, I like everything, like my views on climate. I've got an open mind, and I thank the Lord every day that I wake up with it.
Senator Joyce, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Senator Barnaby Joyce, Shadow Minister for Regional Development, Local Government and Water. It's 10 minutes to 8.